everyone, my name is Sarah and today it is time for my March reading wrap-up. I'm really excited to chat about the 11 books I read during March. Out of those 11, 2 of them were audiobooks and the others were physical copies, so that was very exciting. I did love the majority of them, so it was a pretty good reading month for me, and 11 books, I'm happy with that. The first book I read during March was Four Dead Queens by Astrid Schuld, which of course was the YA Rims book of the month. I am just so excited this book was chosen as our book of the month. Astrid is based in Melbourne. She's an Aussie author. This is Love Us YA Fantasy, and she is just like slaying the bookish world at the moment. I mean, like, yes queen. Her book has also been published in America, which is so exciting. I've had a look at the Barnes & Noble special edition, and seriously, if you live near a Barnes & Noble, like, you need to get your hands on that because it is gorgeous. Astrid's book was also featured in Owl Crate, which is absolutely amazing. I'm just so happy for her. And honestly, so many people are loving Four Dead Queens, and I loved it as well. Four Dead Queens is a book about a society that is split into 4 different nations, and each of those quadrants is ruled by a very different queen. One day, our protagonist, Carolee Corrington, discovers a comm chip that displays all 4 queens being brutally murdered. From there, she has to discover how long the queens have left to live, who murdered them, and what she can do to stop it. This was such a fast-paced fantasy murder mystery story, and honestly, if any of those elements sound up your alley, Four Dead Queens is a book you have to get your hands on. I loved reading about all 4 of the queens, and Carolee Corrington was such a fun protagonist to follow. I really hope there'll be like a sequel or a spin-off book set in this world because I want more of the quadrants. I'm already excited for Astrid's next book, and so I'm just gonna be like rereading this for all of eternity because I have no chill. The next book I read in March was The Boy Who Steals Houses by our blogging queen, Paper Fury, aka CG Drews. Those of you will have seen me screaming about her books previously, but I'm just gonna scream a little bit more because they are absolute perfection, and seriously, if you love contemporary that stabs you in the feels, this is a book you need in your life. The Boy Who Steals Houses is a book about this boy called Sam and his brother Avery who have been breaking into houses to grab food and stay there for shelter while their owners are away. However, one day Sam breaks into this house, and when he wakes up, he finds that the family have come home. From there, he kind of figures that maybe he'll just like spend a day with this big chaotic family. Like, they barely notice that he's there, and they just assume that he's like one of the siblings' friends. But then he gets to know this girl, and she kind of shows him what it means to be a part of a family and how he can be happy, and it's just so beautiful, and I literally have not stopped crying since finishing this book. It is just such a glorious, gorgeous novel, and I definitely recommend you pick it up. It ends like 50 pages too early for my liking, so this is another book that I really want a spin-off for. Fingers crossed that happens because I cannot live in a world where I don't know what happens next. But yes, get your soul ripped out. It is so worth it. Next up, I read When the Sky Fell on Splendor by Emily Henry. This book is pitched as The Serpent King meets Stranger Things. The Serpent King has been on my TBR for years. I know I still have to read it, but Stranger Things, I love that show so much, so of course I had to pick up When the Sky Fell on Splendor. And look at that cover. It is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. When the Sky Fell on Splendor is a part contemporary, part sci-fi novel about a group of kids who suddenly discover they have powers after their local steel mill exploded. I just love kids with powers. It is so much fun to read about, and these teens also have this YouTube channel where they kind of do like hoax paranormal investigation videos, and it's just the greatest thing ever. When I talk to people about this book, I'm like, it's like BuzzFeed Unsolved meets Stranger Things, and I just think that's the perfect comparison. Also, I recently watched Misfits, and yeah, I'm totally getting those vibes from this book as well. So if you like Misfits or Umbrella Academy or Stranger Things, this is a book for you. The whole time I was left questioning what was really going on and who the aliens were and like what was happening in this town, and it just kept me on the edge of my seat. I did not want to put this book down. It was just such a fun book, and I definitely recommend this for people who like their sci-fi a little bit lighter. The next book I read was Bloom, which is a beautiful graphic novel that I've been dying to get my hands on. This one is basically queer boys working in a bakery, and it is the best thing I've ever read. Seriously, if you're a fan of Heartstopper by Alice Oseman, you need to read Bloom. It is just so gorgeous, like these illustrations, I can't even. I want to cry. So it's basically about this boy whose family runs this bakery, but he really wants to escape to the big cities to chase his dreams and be like a part of a band. But when he meets this other baker boy who is new to town and is interested in being a part of his family business, they really strike up a friendship, and it's adorable. Seriously. You won't regret reading this. It is beautiful. Next up, I listened to the audiobook of Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I know everyone has been swooning about this book and hyping it up and screaming and raving about it, but let me tell you, it is worth all of the hype. I fell in love with Taylor Jenkins Reid ever since reading Evelyn Hugo, and yep, Daisy Jones and the Six is just as good. I chose to listen to the audiobook for this one because it is narrated by a full cast in like interview format, which worked really well in Evelyn Hugo, and again, I loved all of the narrators. Daisy Jones and the Six is basically about this woman called Daisy Jones who joins this band called The Six in the 70s. It's a fictional band, let me point that out, because a few people have been like, let me Google that, and nothing came up, so yeah, it's devastating. I want it to be real too, but no, it's fictional. It's about how their band rose to fame and how that impacted all of the people involved, as well as how their band eventually split up. It was such a beautiful, heartbreaking novel. I thought I wasn't gonna cry, and I did again. This book left me a sobbing mess, but it was so well written, so well done. Oh my god, everything like tied together perfectly. If you do have the chance to get your hands on the audiobook, I definitely recommend that format. Do let me know what you think of it. Let me know if you've read Evelyn Hugo, because I need people to gush about this book with. Enjoy! The next book I read in March was Fierce Fragile Heart. This is the sequel to Beautiful Broken Things, which I read a few years ago and literally forgot everything about. What I did really like about this book was like the mental illness portrayal. I do think that we still need to see more books with that kind of representation in YA. I loved the friendship between our protagonist and like this old lady who lived in the same building as her. I thought that was so cute. But beyond those two main things, this book was like quite mediocre for me. It wasn't the best book I've read. It wasn't bad by any means, but it was just like a solid 3 stars. Next up, I read The Bridesiders by Jen Wilde, which was absolutely glorious. I was really in the mood to read another band book after I listened to Daisy Jones and the Six, of course. So I'm like, you know what? Let's read The Bridesiders. What's the worst that could happen? And seriously, I loved this book. The Bridesiders is a book about this girl called Emmy, who is the drummer in this really famous band, and she's made more than a few bad decisions. Her life is kind of on a downward spiral, and everything she does is being used as clickbait. So she really wants to try and distance herself from that and kind of figure out who she is when everyone isn't watching. But in amongst all that, this is a book about friendship and love, and there are so many queer characters. It is absolutely glorious. Emmy is an unapologetically bisexual woman, which I loved seeing. I mean, look at her hair. She is fierce. And yeah, I was just so here for all the romances. It was so swoony. I didn't want to put this book down. It was just adorable. If you're looking for a cute, fun read, The Bridesiders should definitely be on your TBR. Next up, I listened to the audiobook of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Am I predictable? Yes. Just like one night, I couldn't decide what I wanted to listen to, and Harry Potter is such a comfort read for me, so I'm like, yeah, let's start the series all over again. I absolutely love it narrated on audio. Stephen Fry has a voice that feels like a warm hug, and it's just so beautiful. To me, there is honestly nothing more amazing than coming home to Hogwarts and like rediscovering Harry and all his friends. It's just the cutest thing ever, and I forget how much I love this game. going. As you can see, I have the gorgeous Slytherin 20th Anniversary Edition, which I love. Slytherin to the core. The next book I read during March was You Asked for Perfect, which was, as the title suggests, a perfect read. You Asked for Perfect is a really raw, truthful portrayal of what it feels like to be a high achiever in high school. This book is about this boy named Ariel who is like the first violinist. He has the highest GPA, like honestly everyone expects him to get into every Ivy League school. But one day he bombs this calculus test and he is forced to hire a tutor. Him and his tutor Amir start getting to know each other a bit more, and slowly Ariel discovers that high school isn't just about getting perfect grades. This was honestly such an affirming read. I really could have used this novel in high school myself, but even just reading it now, it makes me remember what it felt like to be in that position in high school and to feel like everyone's constantly watching you and expecting you to do the best and like get into the best uni and do the best course. So yeah, this is a book that I could really strongly relate to. It is definitely one of my favorites because of that. Also has great queer and Jewish representation. So yes, this is a book you need to get your hands on. It's such a cute contemporary. It has a lot of swoony moments as well. So yeah, it's perfect. The second to last book I read during March was Oh the Lonely People by David Owen. I picked up this book because Alice Oseman really enjoyed it and she posted about it on social media, so I'm like, yes queen, anything you recommend I will buy. This is a book about this girl called Kat who gets trolled on social media, and so she decides to delete everything. But when she does that, she discovers that she is starting to disappear until nobody can see her at all. Unfortunately, I didn't love this book as much as I had hoped. I feel like if I read this book in high school, I would have related to it a lot more and really saw myself in the narrative, and this would have kind of contributed to me enjoying it more. But yeah, I just couldn't really connect to the writing style. I didn't really like the protagonist or the people that she hung out with. But yeah, I was just left feeling a little bit flat after this book. I know a lot of people really loved this book and saw themselves in it, and maybe you will too, but it just wasn't for me. Sorry. And lastly, the last book I read during March was The Disasters by M.K. England. I am a sucker for a purple cover. I mean, how gorgeous is that? The Disasters is a book that I'd been really excited to read for ages, and finally I got the chance to pick it up and I absolutely loved it. This is a book about this hotshot pilot called Nax who gets kicked out of this flight academy school in space, and he has to like team up with this gang of misfits who suddenly discover that their like space station is under threat. Everyone blames them for what happened and this kind of terrorist attack, and only they know that they're not at fault and that there's a bigger threat out there. These teens have to band together to expose the truth and flee from the people who want them dead, and it is such a fun read. Queer representation in this one as well. Absolutely loved it. The romance was on point. The action scenes were fun and fast paced. I constantly wanted to know what was gonna happen. And yeah, now I just can't wait to read more of what M.K. England writes. If you're a fan of sci-fi novels and you love all of your books queer, this is a book that you have to read. Love it! So these are all the books I read during March. I had such a fun reading month and I really enjoyed the majority of these. So yeah, if any of them piqued your interest, make sure you pick them up. But that is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Do let me know what your favorite read of March was, or if you've read any of the books that I've mentioned. I would love to hear your thoughts on them. Let me know what books you're most excited to read this month, or what other books in general you're excited for. Just give me like all of your excitement. See you next time. Bye everyone.